Hi, I'm Clint Hayes. I am the creator and author of Zeamer, which is my website dedicated to the most highly decorated aircrew in American history. That would be Jay Zeamer's Eager Beavers. They were a B-17 crew in the Southwest Pacific Theater in spring of 1943, early 1943. I apologize for the rather ad hoc nature of this video. Did a little bit of planning here, as you can see, but I wanted to get something out that would address some of the questions and misconceptions that come up about the crew. There's been a lot more interest online and getting more traffic to my website lately as a result of some new YouTube videos that have been put up, and there's always a ripple effect from that. When I do that, I always like to try to list my sources, but the easiest thing to do is just be able to send people to my website. Except YouTube won't let me do that. I can't direct people away from the page, or I get dinged by YouTube, and sometimes get my comments deleted. And it's not because I don't want them to be able to see the video. I just want them to understand where I'm coming from on this. So I wanted to get this out here just so people could understand a little bit better about who I am and what the heck do I know, or maybe why I know it. That would be because of all of this and then some. Back in 1993, I was looking for subject material for my first feature screenplay. I was ready to go ahead and launch into that after I'd been studying screenwriting and taking some classes and sort of thing. So I was ready to write my first screenplay. And my dad knew that I was searching for material, so he sent me a book. In fact, he sent me this book. It's Martin Caden's Flying Forts, the B-17 in World War II. He said, read the first chapter, that's your story. So I did, and he was right. I don't think he ever imagined that 30 years later I would still be working on that story in one form or another. So far, I've written 2 different versions of a feature screenplay about the crew. I've written a miniseries breakdown, 8-episode breakdown, that I'm still actually trying to get out there. And I also created the website. I wanted people to be able to get to know the crew's story, the real story, because there are frankly a lot of misconceptions, a lot of myths. Particularly the whole Dirty Dozen misfits and screw-offs angle that I wanted to be able to address, and I wanted people to be able to have all that. But like I say, when it's on YouTube, it's hard to I can't get into all that. So I wanted to have this video so people could kind of see where I'm coming from on all that. So I read the book and read the story, and I was definitely interested. So I started researching that. And the way I did that, remember, this is pre-World Wide Web. So this is all old school, snail mail, public libraries, the works. Microfiche, pulling things up. And in fact, that's actually how I got, this is Jay Zeamer's article that he wrote, There's Always a Way, in the January 1945 issue of the American Magazine. And I actually got that off microfiche at the Dallas Public Library. I started the whole process with just a simple classified ad in the back of Aviation Week magazine, just asking for information on the crew, and put that out there and waited. I was going down to the library to get whatever information I could on the theater, but there was very little known about the crew at that point, which is one of the reasons why I was interested in trying to tell their story. But slowly but surely things started to trickle in. I started getting letters from, I got a letter from the 43rd Bomb Group, a gentleman with the 43rd Bomb Group, I believe one from the guy from the 65th Bomb Squadron. They put me in contact with the 43rd Bomb Group Association, and I got a lifelong membership with it. So I started getting all its newsletters. They would put out newsletters every quarter or so, and that was a huge boon. I got to start corresponding with, and in some cases talking on the phone and personally interviewing. Drove down to San Antonio to interview Lloyd Boren, who was in the 65th Bomb Squadron in the 43rd. And so I was starting to get a feel for what the theater was like, but I hadn't tracked down any of the crew members yet. Along the way, right before I started being able to talk to the crew, I was able to talk to Walter Krell. Just super sweet guy, just essence of a gentleman. He is the source in Caden's account for the Screw-Offs and Misfits legend, actually, really, as it turns out. And I had a long conversation with him. He sent me some stuff by mail to support some of the things that he'd been telling me. And we lost him the next year, which was that was a little devastating. He was such a neat guy. I was really looking forward to getting to talk to him more. But he actually apologized for the way he portrayed the crew. You got to remember that Krell was being told stories by Zeamer himself. There's no doubt about that. They were classmates in flight school, and he was just about Zeamer's best friend while they were in the 22nd Bomb Group together flying B-26s. So it's not as if he didn't have a close friendship with Zeamer, but he was hearing the stories about what happened months later after he'd been in the hospital, after Krell had been in the hospital, and was trying to recall those to Caden 15 years or so after the events. And he was very quick to admit that, there was a bit of distance between him and the events. He was recalling things the best that he could, and he did regret some of the ways that he portrayed the crew. But he did the best he could, and in fact, a lot of the elements there turned out to be accurate, at least to some degree. But I can get into that in a little while. But I did get to talk to him. I thought it was important to go ahead and point that out. That I was able to talk to the gentleman that Caden actually draws most of his account from. The other one would be General Kenny from General Kenny's reports, which I actually didn't bring out here because I wasn't sure that it was going to come up, but it did. But both of them have lots of problems. Caden's account, he has Zeamer having his left leg amputated below the knee, which I think would have been a great surprise to Zeamer himself. But regardless, I got to talk to him. But then finally I started hearing from family members of the crew and was able to finally get in contact with some of the crew members themselves. I got to interview them by phone. Some of them sent me some letters. And I started the process of getting to know the crew through the crew members themselves, which was a real treat. Along the way, I also started getting to know some of the experts in the theater, other historians, and that sort of thing. One of them was a guy by the name of Larry Hickey. He just passed away last year or so. Really, really super nice guy who had started working on group histories about the various groups of the 5th Air Force starting back in the 80s and working with all of the veterans and contacting all their families. And it was an enormous amount of work, so much more than anything I've ever dreamed of doing. I'm working on one crew, and he was trying to tell the tale of all of these groups and in detail. It was a Herculean effort, and he was working on those for years and years. But I got to visit him up in Colorado, and he gave me a lot of great stuff. He was able to give me Jay Zeamer's flight log, his personal flight log, which is this, which takes him from his squadron errand boy time when he first joined the 403rd, transferred from the 22nd Bomb Group into the 43rd Bomb Group, right up to, in fact, the famous 16 June 43, Medal of Honor mission. And it's got a few of the flights that he did after all that, after he got out of the hospital and that sort of a thing. So Larry Hickey gave me that. He gave me a history of the 43rd Bomb Group that the Bomb Group itself had done, the official one. All sorts of information. I did send off to the archives at the same time, and I got this fat stack of information on Zeamer from the archives, I was a little bit excited when this came in. And these are Zeamer's official personnel records, orders, this sort of a thing, taking him all the way from his time in the infantry reserve of the Army to switching over to be a cadet in the, well, actually it even starts before that, because it's got stuff in here from Culver Military Academy, where he went before going to MIT, getting into the Air Corps, all the way through flight school, and it carries him all the way through being awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. It also came with these documents, which were the crew statements and the letters from the commanders in the area at the time in support of Zeamer's Medal of Honor. And this gives, the crew statements themselves give a nice little, you are there play-by-play of what happened on the mission. So those have been key in being able to understand what exactly happened on that mission. But working with the families, I was able to get, oh my gosh, I got diaries, I got letters, combat diaries and letters from them, both from the crew home and then from people at home to the crew, photos, personnel orders, detailing things, and so many great stories. I sent questionnaires out for the family members to answer about their dads and husbands. And they got me so much great information. It's been such a privilege and an honor to get to know them. And, obviously, especially to get to talk to some of those remaining crew members who have now all passed away. Some of them passed away back in the late 90s. The last one would have been J.T. Britton, who was the substitute co-pilot on the 16 June 43 mission over Bougainville and Buka. So I got all this information. I've been working on this for over 30 years now, as of this last August or so. So that's this is what I know. This is why I know all this. I've gone to the archives myself. I've either pulled myself or hired somebody to pull the morning reports for all of the 43rd squadrons, plus the 22nd Bomb Group's 19th Squadron that Zeamer was a part of before that. I got payroll info from the 8th Photo Recon Squadron that a core part of Zeamer's crew came from. He had 3 different crew members come from 8th Photo. Johnny Abel, George Kendrick, and Bud Thews all came from 8th Photo, and in fact they transferred in together. This I know because I actually have the morning reports that show when they transferred in. And beyond. I've got Zeamer's official flight record, his individual flight record, which is not just his, it has all of his flights, going back in through 22nd Bomb Group and into flight school itself, which his personal flight log doesn't cover. I can't even think. So much stuff. It's been a lot. And so I've gone through all those. I bought lots of books to try to learn as much as I could. This is Skip Bombing by Captain Jim Murphy, who was in the 63rd Bomb Squadron. That was the squadron that the legendary 43rd pilot Ken McCullough was in. He and Zeamer became close friends, and in fact they became so close that when Zeamer got off the boat in San Francisco, coming back from the theater, he was met on the gangplank by Ken McCullough's dad. That's how close they were. Steve Birdsall, one of the great researchers and just authority on the B-17 in general, the B-24. He's written about various aircraft. This is one of the best histories of the 5th Air Force you're going to find, Flying Buccaneers. But I've been able and had the pleasure of corresponding with Steve for several years now. Prince of a guy. He has been an invaluable source of information and help and support. Can't thank him enough for all that. The classic Fortress in the Sky by Jablonski on the B-17. Got this off of eBay. It's been well traveled. And finally, Larry Hickey, who started working on those group histories back in the 80s, come 10 to 15 years ago, he started actually producing those histories. They started being published. And these are his masterworks. These are his legacy, and he couldn't have had a better one. These books are masterpieces. They are simply incredible. These will tell you almost the day-to-day activities of these bomb groups from their inception all the way through to the end. They are just, it says illustrated history. It's got hundreds of photos. It's got airplane profiles, paintings done by the artist Jack Fellows. They are just remarkable. This is his history of the 43rd Bomb Group. And it was so big that they had to break it into 2 volumes. This first volume covers the period that involves Zeamer and Sarnoski and the Eager Beavers. And it has the best printed account of the crew and that mission that you're going to find anywhere, period. Of course, that brings up Lucky 666 by Bob Drury and Tom Clavin. I've got really mixed feelings on that book just because I love whenever the crew gets attention. That's the whole reason I'm doing all this. But Lucky 666, it's a great story. It tells a great story. It does a very admirable job of telling the crew's sort of their Zeamer and Sarnoski's backstory before they get into the theater of war. It's got some good biographical sketches of the crew mostly. The problem is they did not pull enough official archival information to balance the personal information that they got from Jay Zeamer and, mostly Zeamer. They needed to balance that out, and they didn't go ahead and talk to enough family members. If they had, they would not have gotten the crew itself wrong. They did. The book has a lot of issues, especially once the crew gets down into the theater of war. The history is really kind of a mess. I mean, in the broadest bullet points, it's correct, but yes, Zeamer switched from the 22nd Bomb Group into the 43rd. Yes, he eventually ended up in the 43rd and the 65th, but the way they portray all of that happening is a complete mess. They miss the actual origin of the crew, how that came about. It's a mess. So yes, I have the book. I've read it. I've commented on it. I've reviewed it. My Amazon review is not currently up because Amazon kept burying it, and then it just disappeared for no apparent reason. Don't know why, and they wouldn't answer me on it. So you can find the Amazon review that I wrote on my website. You can also find it on Goodreads. It's there if you want to know. But obviously, you can go to my website and see all of this. I have a list of everybody I've ever interviewed. I'm up to over 25. I think I'm up to like 26 or 27 family members who I've talked to about the crew members. But everything's there. It's on the home page. There's also a poll on the home page. If you scroll down a little bit, there's a poll where you can vote to say that you would love to see this story as a movie or a miniseries. When I go to these YouTube videos, I think there are something over 8 million, maybe pushing 9 at this point, 9 million views of the various videos on YouTube about this crew at this point. There are tens of thousands of comments, and literally hundreds of them are people asking, why is this not a movie? Why is this not a miniseries? That's what I'm trying to do. I have the script written. I have the breakdown ready. What will help sell this story is for producers, directors, whoever I can get this to see how much interest there is in this story. I'm up to 600 so far, but that could easily be 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, easily, based on all the, all the various comments of that nature that I see on these videos. So please, if you want to see this movie or this story as a movie or a miniseries, please come to the website and click yes. Click, I want to see this. So do that, please. But anyway, like I said, I know this is very, spontaneous, and, I'm not completely organized, but I just wanted to give that, just that little summary, so that if somebody does click through from a YouTube comment or whatever, they find my channel, in support of, the website, zeamerbeavers.com, that you know who I am and why, why I've come to be an authority on this. It's because I do love this story. And I love these guys. I just respect the hell out of these guys, and their families have been wonderful. I've been blessed with so much information on them, and they have put a lot of trust in me in bringing all this information together and making sure that the real story comes out. And I know sometimes on the videos when I push back a little bit on the sort of received narrative, the myth, the Dirty Dozen myth, because it is a myth. There are elements of it to it, but these guys weren't screw-offs, and they'd be insulted if you called them that. They weren't. They weren't really misfits either. They did like to volunteer for missions, and I guess if that made them, not like the rest, okay, maybe misfit a little bit, but they certainly weren't screw-offs. It was the exact opposite. Zeamer and Sarnoski wouldn't have been on board for that. In fact, they actively weeded out the screw-offs. Those weren't the kind of men that they wanted on their crew. They wanted a group of lean-forward men who weren't afraid of Zeamer's flying. They knew that he would get the job done, and they found that crew. It was a process, but they got them. And my God, they got them. It's something else. So anyway, thanks for your time, and I hope to see you online.